Because if it was a Muslim, then I think there would have been a lot of Muslim lives in America, right, would have been sort of impacted by this.
Right. So I mean, we've got our first our guest that I'm going to go to very shortly, but that point is, it is routine for the mental health of white perpetrators of such crimes to be the leading narrative when it comes to causality, right? But when it's not, white, perpetrated, then the whole accusation and the storylines are completely different. Let me go straight to Aida on that note. Assalamu alaikum, Aida.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, so hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, right? So I believe you're the council from the Council on American Islamic Relations Director at the CAIR-Florida. Is that correct?
Correct. I spearhead the Interfaith and Youth Programs Department for Council on American Islamic Relations here in Florida.
Right, fantastic. So being in Florida at the moment, what's been the reaction on the ground to this latest, yet another school shooting, Aida?
Well, this has been a shock to our community, a shock to communities at large. As you know, this is actually the largest, the deadliest school shooting in the history of Florida. 17 reported dead and dozens of injured. And I did hear a little bit about the commentary regarding the response and emphasis on mental health, and should we only be doing that? What angers me as an activist is the hypocrisy of the politicians currently in their rhetoric and in their response. We're so busy playing political games and who to appease and making sure their funders are happy with their responses.
Absolutely.
We're willing to sacrifice and play with the souls of innocent children. So absolutely, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of sadness and grief, obviously. But we're mobilizing and as different initiatives that we're taking.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can appreciate, having guns, being part of the Constitution or, being part of the American culture, but surely there are questions that are being asked, right? And there are, more than questions now being asked. There's a lot of, momentum now developing, but is it going to be sufficient to actually, manage to, be successful against the gun lobby in America, or is it just too powerful?
Well, if we were to take that approach and with anything, to think that something is too powerful, then we could just, sit at home and twirl our thumbs and do nothing. But as Muslims, also, we are taught to tie our camels and then put our faith and trust in Allah. Right? So we have to do our due diligence and then act and then rely on prayer. So prayer should never be enough. And I often hear, like I said, these same politicians, in their hypocrisy of the approach, indicating a prayer. It's too early to be discussing certain measures. But if we were to look back in 2015, when the shootings happened in France, in Europe, the Trump administration called for a ban on Muslims entering the United States. And he has since been passed 3 different executive orders trying to implement this ban. So you can see the hypocrisy between the two approaches, right?
I mean, as a Muslim community, and then also being part of this particular organization. I mean, it must. What are your feelings and thoughts whenever it is a white supremacist or that's perpetrating a crime? Then immediately, his mental health. He's not quite there mentally, right? So all of these stories and all of this, the whole narrative is with regards to his mental health, and that being a reason for him perpetrating that crime. But when it's a Muslim, then he's immediately terrorist, and then there's all these initiatives, there's anti-terrorism, new legislation, and then there's a whole, homing in on the whole Muslim community.
Exactly. This is exactly the point that I was trying to say with the different approaches. They're the same politicians who talk about banning all Muslims for certain countries in hopes of keeping our country safe, right? But they're also talking about changing different immigration laws. This DACA has been the big issue, right? And they're talking about surveilling our places of worship. So yes, there's absolutely clear hypocrisy. Am I saying that mental health should not be talked about? Absolutely. But it needs to be across the board. We can't treat one one instance of a mass killing in one way and then turn around and say it's too, send our thoughts and prayers and it's too sensitive of an issue to be discussed in certain ways, right? This is costing our community's children innocent lives, so it absolutely, and it undermines the civil rights and liberties here in America. It's undermining the principles that that make America great, and at the same time it's opening doors to more bloodshed and loss of life as our politicians do nothing year after year, and a mass shooting after mass shooting. I don't know if you're aware, but only 2 months into the year, and we have already had 18 mass.
Yes, we discussed that earlier. Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible, but I mean, the other point that you mention is that, I mean, all the point whenever we discuss, a kind of terrorism, all the anti-terrorism, initiatives, they're all geared towards the Muslims. But whilst I'm saying that, my kind of messages come up to tell me that I've only got 45 seconds left, so I'm not going to even bother asking that question. So if you can just hold on for a couple of more minutes, we're going to actually go into a commercial break. I'd really appreciate if you can hold on a couple of minutes, and we can then actually continue discussion after the commercial break. Is that okay, Sister Aida?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, just a reminder to our listeners that this is Friday Night Live, and I am your host, Hafiz Shaban, with Brother Zafar in the studio, and we are currently discussing the US school shooting in Florida, inshallah ta'ala, and we're going to continue discussing that after the break. We've got a Sister Aida from Florida in the States currently sharing her thoughts with us, inshallah ta'ala, so don't go away. We're going to go into a commercial break for only 4 minutes, and then we'll be back getting the thoughts from Sister Aida, and we'll continue that discussion. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban, and Brother Zafar in the studio on this Friday, 16th of February 2018. We've come to the very last section of the program this evening, inshallah ta'ala. It's great to get your thoughts and your feedback on the initial the story that we've been covering, and that's drugs in our community. Do continue to send in your messages. I want to also appreciate and thank the Imam from Hockwell Ring Masjid. Mashallah, they called and they actually tried to put in a comment, but it was a bit too late. We'd actually moved on to the next subject matter, but they have sent in a message that they actually have some anti-drug initiative and some campaign at the masjid, inshallah ta'ala. So if there's anyone out there who wants to actually who wants to know about some of the initiatives that are there to support people who are either using drugs or who are trafficking drugs, dealing in drugs, and want to get some guidance and advice, then you can actually reach out to Hockwell Ring Masjid. So Jazakallah khair for that. Also Jazakallah khair for the other brother who did call in. Sorry, we didn't try to cut you, but we actually put you on hold for a moment. We continued the discussion and then we'd actually lost you. And everyone else who sent a message, Jazakallah khair for that. We have now moved on in terms of our discussion, and we've been discussing the tragic school shooting in the US, and we did have Sister Aida from Florida who was joining us, and we were discussing the kind of hypocrisy and the double standards that a lot of the politicians and policy makers take with regards to these kind of shootings when the perpetrator is a white supremacist or affiliated to white supremacist organizations, and it almost happens to be always a health related issue that is actually has influenced that individual. But when it comes to a Muslim perpetrating a similar crime or a similar crime, let's say, then it's always Islam to blame. It's always his belief that is to blame, and there's a lot of anti-terrorism legislation and a lot of other rhetoric that comes out. And the sister was highlighting the hypocrisy and the double standards of the lawmakers. I don't know if Sister Aida, you can hear me now.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, I wasn't sure you were live again. All right, Jazakallah khair for joining us and for your patience over the commercial break. So very quickly, we were discussing the subject, and you were going to come on to how, in fact, I was going to ask you the question, in fact, how the focus of the policy makers has been the Muslims, immigration, and how it's, and that's been the focus, and it hasn't really been, these kind of white supremacist organizations, in terms of guns and that kind of culture, and that hasn't really been the focus of the policymakers, and is always the anti-immigration bandwagon and the Muslims and so on and so forth.
Sure. Well, one of the things we hear often, like I said earlier, from some of these politicians is their lack of wanting to politicize these shootings. They want to go into their prayers and thoughts. And I say shame on them. I say these are the same politicians who talk about, like you said, banning all Muslims. And it's the same administration that has called on Muslim bans and has issued 3 different executive orders for these Muslim bans, from banning Muslims from coming from specific countries, right?
Yeah.
And in that same regard, changing immigration laws, talking about surveilling our communities, yet when we have children's lives in such a high number of deaths, within 18 of them within this year alone,
Yes. Yeah.
that should speak on that hypocrisy. But I also want to emphasize that is not a loss. You asked me earlier, how should we just, call it quits? Is there nothing we can do?
Yeah.
I don't think there's nothing we can do. And the Florida Muslim community, we are coordinating our efforts. We have the South Florida Muslim Federation, and this particular school is Stoneman High School, where it's in South Florida, and we do have offices there. And one of our federation, the South Florida Muslim Federation, is compiled of different organizations such as CAIR-Florida, Friends of Humanity, Cosmos, Engage, ICNA, Islamic Relief. I'm going to probably forget Muslim Women's Organization, etc. There's a number of them. And so we came together and we held meetings and we said, what can we do to assist the shooting victims? Because we really do need to remember the victims of this entire messaging and rhetoric. We're forgetting that these are children. So our organization and the Muslim community at large is mobilizing. There's a lot we can do. One of the things is the Launch Good leadership reached out to us as well and said, what can we do? So we started a Launch Good campaign where all the money collected will be going towards relief efforts in that regard. And we're also doing a blood drive. If you go on our website, you will see when you can schedule these blood drives. And we're also, the third initiative that we've all agreed on is we're offering free counseling. Mental health professionals are certified, are coordinating assistance and offering assistance to those in need, and this will be all free of charge. And we're also offering clergy assistance within the greater community. So we'll have different imams and clergy from different faiths available for grief sessions and etc. So there is things that we can do, but we have to look at the facts. Like I said, we have to remember that there's over a 500% surge in hate crimes and hate incidences that are reported to CAIR-Florida, and that hasn't diminished. We still keep receiving dozens and dozens of these calls every year. So it's something we have to be cognizant of.
No, fantastic, sister. Really appreciate your time that you've taken out to join us and share some of those thoughts. I think the fantastic thing is, and it's a very good message to our community here in the UK, which is continue to do good, continue to reach out to the indigenous community, to continue to actually, challenge the stereotype perception that that the media puts out there with regards to the Muslims, by actually reaching out to the indigenous community and showing them, we are not what the way we are portrayed by the media. And that happens by showing your humanitarian aspect and actually, reaching out to the victims as you're doing at the moment. And I think you're right. There's a huge challenge, and we'll continue to face that challenge, which is to actually change that perception that is trying to, that people are trying to portray with regards to of the Muslim community. It's a long, hard road out there, but we've got to continue in terms of those efforts. Jazakallah khair for joining us, sister. I don't know if you want to just say a quick last point, but all right, fantastic. Jazakallah khair, Sister Aida, for joining us this evening.
Barakallah feekum.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. All right.